some examples. Did I tell you the javelin story earlier? A few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she caught it in her jugular. But she survived. That was a happy story. She survived. So let's look at oxygen delivery to the tissues for a patient that took a javelin to the jugular. When the paramedics arrived, they put oxygen on her nose and mouth with a mask, and she had 15 liters of roughly 100%, because we think that going at that high flow, a non-rebreather mask should deliver 80 to 100% oxygen. It's probably closer to 80, but we're going to say 100 just for. So if we deliver 100% to her nose and her mouth, what's the partial pressure of oxygen in her alveoli? Can you figure that out, Connie? We gave her 100% oxygen, and it was at 4,000 feet elevation, so the barometric pressure was 640. 640. We gave her 100% oxygen, nearly 100% oxygen with a non-rebreather at 15 liters.
This is alveolar gas.
It sure is. 640 minus 47 is 593 times 100%. The FiO2 should have been 100%. Minus, she was breathing normal, and her CO2, let's say, was on the low end. 35 times 1.25. 35 times 1.25 is about 40. You have to confirm that for me, Jimmy. I'll do that right now. 35 times.
It's like 43 or 44.
Is it a little higher?
Yeah, it's 433.75.
44. 593 times 100% is 593, minus 44 is 549.
Yeah.
So I just delivered, so this patient that caught the javelin in her jugular vein, we put 100% non-rebreather on her nose and mouth. She was breathing at an elevation of 4,000 feet, and her PaO2 wasn't 80 to 100, it was 549 millimeters of mercury. So we were able to deliver across 9 tissue layers 549, because she didn't have any lung disease. She was able to dissolve what she had across the alveolar capillary membrane and diffuse it. And now her PaO2 was 549. So if I think about partial pressure, she was definitely hyperoxygenated, right? She had plenty of oxygen. It was well above 80 to 100 that we normally expect at sea level. But if I figure out oxygen delivery to her tissues, in the plasma, she had a factor of 0.003 times 549 millimeters of mercury delivered to her alveoli. 549 times 0.003 is what? 549 times 0.003.
1.6.
How many?
1.6.
1.6 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood. Remember, at breathing room air, this was only about 0.3. So even though she had a PO2 of 549, which was off the charts, she still only delivered 1.6 milliliters of O2 in a deciliter of blood. Hardly anything. We don't deliver oxygen to our tissues in plasma. It's a tiny, tiny amount, even if your PO2 is 500. Okay? It went from 0.3 to 1.6. Granted, it went up a little bit, and it's probably what saved her. So her hemoglobin was 3 grams. Every gram carries 1.34 milliliters of O2 times a saturation. She was 99% on her hemoglobin saturation. So they put an oximeter on her finger. Her PO2 was 500, but her saturation was 99%. So 3 grams times 1.34 times 0.99. You always have to remember to put in your decimal spot. 0.99. What is it, Kyle?
3.97. So.
Ooh, 3.9. So almost 4.
Yeah.
4 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood. So if we add the amount bound to hemoglobin to the amount dissolved in plasma, or CaO2 is 5.6 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood, volumes percent or grams percent.
Still low.
What's normal oxygen content? 20, that's right. Normal oxygen content is 20. Breathing 100% oxygen with a non-rebreather with 3 grams of hemoglobin, we delivered 5.6 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood.
So this patient's hyperoxygenated, but still in a hypoxia state.
Yes, very good point, Kavi. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
So the patient was not hypoxemic, their PO2 was 500, but and to make a determination of hypoxia, we suggest that anything lower than 15 is hypoxic. So she was all the way down to 5. Why? Can you see, Truman, why she was hypoxic? Hypoxia means tissue oxygenation. Yeah, Armando.
So hemoglobin, is it supposed to be at 15?
Yes, it should be 15. Why was it only 3? She bled it out. She bled out all of her red blood cells, so we were saturating every last bit of hemoglobin she had, and even some in the plasma. What was in the plasma probably saved her. So, content of 5.6, that is yikes, is all I can say. A content of 5, holy
Holy shit.
Holy
I have a question.
shnikes.
Things are dying.
How does it work? So she lost, let's say she lost 12 grams.
Yeah.
Right? If you guys are doing blood transfusions, do we calculate that into? Like, what's
No,
the-
it's,
like, what's the value of the blood?
it's a snapshot in time. When we do a blood
Okay,
gas,
okay.
it's a snapshot
Okay.
at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so if we start an infusion of blood, that'll build back up,
Okay.
as long as we've repaired whatever is causing the loss of blood in the first place. Now, you probably see that all the time, Alicia, as an EMT. People that lose blood, they always put them on oxygen because of the danger of oxygenation to the tissues is such a high priority. Making sure there's enough oxygen so the tissues can keep creating ATP and through oxidative phosphorylation.
And usually at that point, their body's in shock and they shunt all blood to
Absolutely.
the core to
Yeah, absolutely.
keep
So there
organs
are
alive.
protective mechanisms
Yeah.
that could help that. But typically, when your blood comes back, we've talked about the right and the left heart. The right side of the heart takes deoxygenated blood to the lungs to undergo oxygenation. Then it comes back to the left side of the heart. And remember, we could even draw a sample out of the pulmonary artery. If we draw blood out of the pulmonary artery, that's the deoxygenated side. The oxygen content, and we measure that, that's called let me do it in green, CVO2. So if we do a blood gas, we can measure the oxygen content in the mixed venous blood. And that's a measurement of what the tissues have taken out. Does that make sense to you? So the left side of the heart has pumped blood through the aorta and down to your big toe. Your big toe takes it out, takes oxygen out, and sends it back to the right side of the heart through the inferior vena cava, through the right atrium, the right ventricle, and down to the pulmonary artery. If we take blood out of the pulmonary artery, we can see what the tissues have extracted before it gets reoxygenated again. So normally, your arterial system should have around 20 is normal, 20 grams per cent. If we take blood out of the mixed venous system, it should be 15 grams. Tissue metabolism usually takes 5 grams per cent of oxygen out of the arterial blood. So your mixed venous blood will come back with 3/4 of the oxygen still left in it. Does that make sense?
body.
Again, we're over-engineered. We only use 25%. 25% of 20 is 5 grams. So what we get back is around 15 grams. So you could make 3 trips around your body and still have enough oxygen left over without undergoing any gas exchange whatsoever, because your tissues only use a quarter of it.
What's it
Yeah.
called? Tissue metabolism?
Tissue metabolism. We want to know what we send out to it is being utilized, so we can take a sample in the Swan-Ganz catheter in the right atrium. Well, it's actually in the pulmonary artery. So we take a little bit of sample out and measure the content again. It should be around 15 grams. So your body takes about 5 grams %. That's normal. In this case, the person that had a hemoglobin of 3 grams, we send out 5.6 milliliters of O2. Her body used 5 milliliters of oxygen. And so if we would have taken blood from her mixed venous system, it would have been 0.6. we would have used everything for metabolism. So she was not hypoxemic because her PO2 was so high, but she was very hypoxic. Even with O2 at 100% with a non-rebreather at 15 liters, she was still hypoxic.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
She lived though, right?
She did. She survived.
Jet
But here's a classic example of how you might look at oxygen delivery and think she's on a non-rebreather, her SATs are 99%, she's fine, right? Her PO2 was 500. She's fine, take her off the oxygen. Had we taken her off the oxygen, she may not have survived. Now, she might have shunted and corrected, and she was definitely tachypnic and tachycardic because we weren't providing enough oxygen, what she normally should have. But she did survive. But here's an example how you can be not hypoxemic, but still be hypoxic. Is the opposite also true? Not only yes, hell yes, and I'll show you how. So oxygen content is a measurement of tissue delivery, tissue oxygenation. And you'll see patients every day that are hypoxemic but not hypoxic. Can you imagine how that would be? If they have, let's take an example of COPD. In COPD, we still diffuse oxygen across the alveolar capillary membrane into their plasma, and their plasma carries 0.003 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood. And in COPD, patients often they have low SATs and low oxygen. In classic chronic bronchitics, we call them blue bloaters, they're cyanotic all the time. So their PO2 comes back, let's just say 50 millimeters of mercury. So by virtue of the definition of hypoxemia, patients will have a PO2 less than 60. So 60 becomes the definition of hypoxemic patients. So a PO2 of less than 60. This COPD patient was definitely hypoxemic because the PO2 was less than 60. So 0.003 times 50 is 0.15 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood dissolved in the plasma. And we add to that the hemoglobin, which in COPD, what do you do to build up red blood cells? What's that called? Polycythemia. So their hemoglobin wouldn't be 15, their hemoglobin would be 18 grams. Because of chronic hypoxemia, they compensate by building up red blood cells. So they have 18 grams of hemoglobin. Every gram of hemoglobin carries 1.34 milliliters of O2, and their saturation at a PO2 of 50 is about 85%. So if we take this number, about the oxygen bound to hemoglobin, 18 grams times 1.34 times 0.85. What is it, Jimmy?
20.5.
Oh, good.
Wow.
20.5 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood. 20.5 plus 0.15 is 21,
20.
oh, 20.
20.65.
Right. 65 milliliters of O2 per deciliter of blood. This patient was hypoxemic, but not hypoxic. We were able to deliver enough oxygen, even in a hypoxemic condition. We were able to deliver enough oxygen, the body compensated through erythropoietin and polycythemia to carry enough oxygen to their peripheral tissues such that they weren't hypoxic. So when we use the term hypoxemia and hypoxia, we want to be very specific and careful the way we use it. Other health practitioners will interchange the meaning of these two words, but you'll know better. You'll know that hypoxemia is relative to partial pressure, and hypoxia is relative to tissue oxygenation. And a normal tissue oxygenation is around 20 grams per cent. Okay? So if we were to measure a blood gas out of the pulmonary artery, we would probably see it around normal of around 15 grams in the CVO2. So this is the measurement of arterial content, CaO2. If we measure a content of the mixed venous blood, it's a measurement of what the tissues have extracted. And can you see how that could be a powerful number to know? If we look at the difference between what we sent out and delivered to the tissues and what the tissues came back, how much oxygen came back, you can determine exactly what the tissues took out. And that's the difference between the CaO2 and the CVO2. That, by the way, is called CaVO2 difference. Content AVO2 difference. And that should be 5. The AVO2 content difference is a measurement of 5 milliliters of O2 in a deciliter of blood. So oxygen content tells us more about tissue oxygenation, and we call that hypoxia versus hypoxemia, which is all about partial pressure of O2. Go ahead, Kristen.
So on the blood gas report,
Yeah.
it doesn't say CaO2, right? It says something different.
Yeah.
It says like O2 con.
On an ABG, it would give us this one. So in an arterial blood gas, you'd get this number.
Mhm.
On a mixed venous blood gas, so a blood gas taken out of the pulmonary artery, you'd get this number. And then all you have to do is take this one and subtract this one.
Okay, so on the arterial blood gas, you would just get it.
You get oxygen content.
Okay.
And on the mixed venous blood gas, you'd get mixed venous content, and then in your mind, you'd have to just take one from the other. It's the arterial minus the venous.
Okay.
AVO2 content difference. Make sense? Should be around 5 under normal circumstances. We should extract 5 grams per cent in a deciliter of blood to undergo tissue metabolism. That's normal. So it's interesting, we only use 25% of the oxygen we send out to the tissues. 75% of the oxygen comes back and goes through oxygenation again, through the right side of the heart. Need to breathe deep and take a break with that.
I understand.
Jump up and run around.